Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Chiseled. And why do we call it Chiseled? Because we're all a work in progress. I'm your host, Rob Commodari. I'm also the author of the book Better Than You Think and co-author of the best-selling book Next Level Your Life with Kyle Wilson and many other co-authors. Today, our guest is Ron White. Now, before I tell you who he is, I'm going to ask you a few questions or give you a few scenarios here. So, if you ever met somebody and you couldn't remember their name or don't recall their name, you possibly could have lost that relationship or even business. Every time you've given a speech and you couldn't remember some points, you may have lost sales. Well, when you've taken the same class time and time again, or read the same book over again, and maybe wasted time that you could have spent with your family and friends, well, our guest today, Ron White, I think he can fix this. Ron White is a two-time U.S. memory champion, and he's held that record. He holds the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards in the USA for 2 years. He's spoken on memory skills all over the world, including Malaysia, Singapore, Belgium, Spain, Australia, Puerto Rico, and many more, and even Nebraska. So you may have seen Ron on National Geographic Channel show Brain Games, where he's memorizing names, numbers, and cards. He did one episode on the Fox show with Mike Tyson and Cal Penn called Superhuman. And if you don't know Ron, or once you get to know Ron, you're going to know he's superhuman for sure. He's delivered workshops all over the country and world for General Motors, Microsoft, Toyota, Honda, Pfizer, Century 21, and thousands around the world. He says it was a great thrill for him to be part of the History Channel show Superhumans, where they took him into a hardware store and actually compared his memory to that of a computer. So you may have also seen him on the Martha Stewart Show, CBS Early Show, Good Morning America, Fox, CBS, ESPN, and many others. So, Ron White, that was a long introduction for you because you got a lot going on. Welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you very much. And I uh, I always think I need to shorten my introduction. But I appreciate you having me here. And, Rob, I always tell people, one of the things that I value the most in life is just friendships. So I appreciate being your friend. And above all else, that's what I appreciate. So thank you for having me here. Looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun show. And I didn't mention a couple of things that he owns the Brain Athlete, which we'll talk about. He's also been an intelligence specialist in the Navy. Thank you for your service, by the way. And we recently did a memory and marketing event in Baltimore where I guess you could say Ron did the majority of it. I was the MC, so to speak. And Ron did a heck of a job. We had a great turnout and was awesome to do so. I thank you for that. So, Ron, as we start here, yeah, give us an idea. Like, you've been doing this memory stuff for 33 years. So can you give us some context? Like, how did you get there?
Yeah, and 33 years, people hear that and they think, man, that is impossible. How could it be 33 years? He looks like he's 27 years old. And I appreciate that, but I'm not, right? I'm 33 plus 18. I'll let you figure it out, do the math. But 33 years ago, I was going to the University of North Texas, kind of. I mean, that's easy to say I was going. I was really just signed up, enrolled, and showing up to take the test. I did terrible. I had a 0.9 my freshman year of college. I found my transcript around here somewhere recently. I'm going to frame it because I don't think anybody's got a 0.9 transcript anywhere laying around, but I do. But during that first year of college, clearly, I wasn't an academic superstar, but I really wasn't applying myself. It didn't interest me. But I had a stroke of luck. The life, your life can go one direction or the other so dramatically based on something so small. It's mind-boggling, all the possible different scenario outcomes we have for our lives based on little tiny things. And a little tiny thing in 1991, I took a job as a telemarketer. That was a pretty tiny thing for a company that cleaned chimneys. My telemarketing manager said, go tear a page out of the Arlington, Texas phone book over there. I opened up the phone book, randomly tore a page out. I mean, it could have been any page. And then I went back to my desk and I started calling people. So how random is it that I take a job as a telemarketer cleaning chimneys? How random, out of the 500 pages in the phone book, I tear out that one page. And I start making calls that day. And I called a phone number, and the guy who answered the phone didn't even live there. It was his girlfriend's house. He was just visiting for an hour, and he picks up the phone. Small, crazy, little, just microscopic chances I say, hey, my name's Ron White. I'm with the Metroplex Chimney Sweep. We'd like to come out there and clean your chimney. He said, we don't want our chimney cleaned. We're trying to sell our house. Thanks for calling. I said, sir, if you're trying to sell your house, you should have a clean chimney. He's like, you know what? I like how you just overcame my objection. He said, I'm a telemarketing manager for a company in Dallas that sells memory training seminars. Do you want to go to work for us selling memory training? I said, that sounds a lot more interesting than what I'm doing right now. Yeah, I'll meet you. I'll meet you there tomorrow. Went to Dallas 2 days later, met him, and that was 33 years ago. But think about that for a second. The little bitty chances the life could have gone this way or the other makes me realize how little we are in control sometimes of the outcome of our life. Now, here's the thing. I seized the opportunity. I jumped on it. I worked. I seized the moment, and I became a 2-time USA memory champion, and I have lived an interesting life. But I have nothing special about my brain or memory. Anybody can do what I did. And I got a little sidetracked there, and I've really never gone into that much detail on that much sidetrack, but it just really has hit me in the last few days about how little small decisions, little tiny things impact your entire life. But that's how I got introduced to memory training. It's a little side note there, but the message I want to give your listeners as far as memory goes, forgetting about the little tiny decision thing, is my memory is no better than anybody else's. I'm just a guy who got hired because he was a good telemarketer. I developed my memory. Anybody can develop their memory beyond their wildest imagination.
And that's phenomenal. I've known you for a couple of years now, and I haven't heard that story. I did not know that's how you got into it. That's amazing. Now, I mean, I don't know where you are spiritually, but I'm thinking, man, how, like you said, how random was that, right? You just pulled a page out of a book and you made a phone call, and boom, now look at you 33 years later. To me, in my world, that's the spirit working, or people might say the universe, or it's conspiring on your behalf. So, I mean, did you ever think like that at all, or it was random luck?
I don't know. I do definitely think there are things in the universe and in the world that we can't explain. And I do study the Bible a lot. I know I have a Bible memory club, and we meet once a week. We memorize Bible verses together and locations of the Bible. It's the movie Rudy. The football player Rudy. Rudy's all depressed and discouraged, and he goes to the church and he's talking to the priest, and the priest replies to Rudy, about his troubles. He says, Rudy, there are two out of 50 years of studying theology and religion, there's only two incontrovertible truths that I have arrived at. Number one, there is a God. Number two, I'm not him. That was a great line.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so I would say, yeah, that's possible. I don't know. I believe there's something out there, but as far as directed my paths, maybe so. I will say this: it was a perfect fit. It was a perfect fit for my interest in what I do, and I enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Did you get hooked right away on it? Like you said, next thing you know, you're selling memory courses. Like I assume you took the course, and then you're like, man, this is me.
Yeah, kinda. I think what I said, this is me, to right away was, as an 18-year-old, I really liked the idea of being in business, being a businessman. That kind of excited me. And all the guys who I went to work for, they didn't really see themselves as, memory experts. They saw themselves as businessmen and salesmen. And I kind of fell in love with that. The idea of being a salesman and a businessman and a mover and a shaker, at the age of 18, that's what I thought I was. And that's what I really liked. But over the years, it really, I'd say 2 or 3 years in, it became more about memory for me than anything. And I fell in love with the art of memory. And I didn't just want to be a salesman or a businessman. I wanted to be a memory expert. I fell in love with the brain and learning and memory systems. And who knows, maybe if I had fallen more in love with the business aspect, I'd be a gazillionaire today. But I really love memory training and the art of it. And I did fall in love with that about probably 2 years in.
When you say the art of it, what's the art of memory training? What's the art?
Yeah, so there was a guy named Gregor von Feingold, and he lived in Germany probably about 300 years ago, and he wrote a book called The Art of Memory. And
Okay.
it's just, You know, to me, and he talked about all the great things people had done throughout time with their memory in the Middle Ages, you know, and even centuries before him. But embracing the art of memory, the art of achieving wonderful, great things with your memory. To me, the art of memory is mastering the skill, like a guitar player or a piano player or an artist. It's really embracing it and mastering it and using it to it's a beautiful thing when you master the art of memory. You're able to go into a room of people and meet 20, 30 people and remember their names, and it's effortless. Not because it's easy, but because you've worked at it and you've mastered the art, like a guy playing a guitar. And to me, that's the art of memory. In today's day and age, there's a lot of courses out there that are just memory courses. Hey, here's a memory course. It's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and now you can memorize your grocery list. Give me $100. See you later. Like that ain't the art of memory. The art of memory is experiencing the power of the human brain and doing something beautiful with it. That to me is the art of memory.
Yeah, great answer. And we're going to talk a little bit about like the mind castle thing. I want to get into that a little later. So when you first started this, Ron, was it more like, okay, let's see how much I can remember, how much further I can go with this? And like, is there one, like, was there a moment you're like, what was like the biggest thing, like significant thing that you were able to remember? Or was it just names at a certain time? I don't know.
Yeah, I did want to push my brain and be the best at it, you know, or be the best that I could be. And my first goal for that was, the first thing I ever did was I was probably in my early 20s. I memorized the first 7 chapters of the book of Proverbs word for word. It's about 210 verses. That was probably something that I did, not as a huge memory project that I announced, but it was just neat for me. But later on, after about 17 years, so in the meantime, it just became mastering the art of memory when I was working, memorizing names and faces. And that's how I saw it. But over time, I wanted to go to a different level. 2009 and 10, I won the USA Memory Championships. I set some records for memory, for cards and numbers. And then I began getting all these requests from the National Geographic channel. Hey, we're going to put you some memory challenges in Times Square. Will you do it? And I said, let's go. The History Channel called me and said, hey, Ron, we want to put you to the test and do an MRI on your brain while you memorize and take you to Home Depot and memorize. And I said, let's go. And a bunch of other TV shows just kept calling one because I was accepting all the challenges, and I never missed a challenge for a TV show or a TV show from France. Crew flew to Texas and they took me to a store and they challenged me here. And so I love those challenges, but the biggest challenge that I'm most proud of in my life is I'm a veteran of the war in Afghanistan, and I memorized every U.S. military member that died in the war in Afghanistan. There's 2,400 of them, ranked first name, last name. It's 7,500 words, and I will write these names out on a wall. It takes me 10 hours to write it out. Imagine you're at the Vietnam Wall and you see somebody writing out the Vietnam Wall from memory. That's what I do for Afghanistan. So that's the memory project that I'm most proud of and most want to see as my signature project.
Yeah, I saw the video of that. I think you shared it at one of our events, but I think it's on YouTube. Some of the stuff that you've done there, and thank you for doing that. And it's amazing. I think there was different segments of showing you where you were on the wall when you were writing all these names. And how many hours did that take, by the way?
It takes between 10 and 13 hours to write it out.
Wow. And was there ever a time when you were writing those names on that wall that you're like, oh crap, I forgot where I'm at?
It's a common question, and my answer is going to be counterintuitive. So the first time I wrote it out, I breezed through it. I never hesitated. I never questioned a period, an I before E, an E before I. Jeffrey, is it J or is it with a G? I mean, the first time I wrote it, zoomed through it. As I kept doing it, it got more and more difficult, and I doubted myself more and more. Now, that's counterintuitive, because people would say, well, why the first time should be the most difficult, and then as you go, it should get easier and easier because you have repetition. Well, actually, the reason it was easiest the first time I did it, because I had spent 10 months in preparation, preparing, training daily. boom, I write it out February 28th, 2013. Then after that, I took a couple weeks off, and then I wrote it out the wall. And then, because I had to get back to my job. So
Yeah.
I started taking breaks, I say breaks, but just really getting back to work. The first time was the easiest. I never had any question. As time went on, it's gotten a little fuzzier and fuzzier in my brain. If I was to write out the wall right now, it would be a disaster. I'd probably get 50%. So it would require months of preparation to do it again.
You have to retrain your brain to do that.
Yeah, the information's still in there. So let's look at it this way. If it took me 11 months to memorize the first time when it wasn't in there, to get it back in there, because the remnants are still there, it just needs to be refreshed. To get it back in there perfect, I bet you I could do it in 2 months.
Wow, that's cool. You ever thought about doing it again?
Oh, 100%, 100%, 100%. I'm going to try to reach out to Folds of Honor. I haven't yet, but them and some other organizations that I want to do some things with. So yes, 100%.
It's cool. I can't wait to hear about that. Next time I see you in person, I'm going to ask you, did you do that yet?
Yeah. Thank
There
you.
you go. So Ron, so the first time you competed, did you seek the competition, these championship things, or did somebody come calling to you?
No, I sought it out. In 2001, I heard about a Guinness record, and I went on a Fox TV show, and I broke the record, or at least I thought I did. Then I told everybody, hey, I broke this Guinness record. For 2 years, I told everybody I broke a Guinness record. Finally, I got around to applying for my certificate for Guinness, 2 or 3 years later. And then they told me, Ron, you actually didn't break the record. You misunderstood the record. I'm like, oh, no. So I took it off my website. But because I had this claim for 2 years that I'd broken a Guinness record, people were still introducing me that way, talking to me. And I felt like although I hadn't lied, I'd made a mistake. I felt like I had lied. And I'm like, this is a burden. I got to get rid of this burden. I got to make this right. So I heard about the USA Memory Championship. At first, I thought there's no way I could compete against those guys and win. The things they're doing is unbelievable. It's crazy. But then I thought, you know what? I have to go compete against these guys and at least do well, or I am not what I'm claiming to be. I'm not one of the top memory experts. I'm just a guy who has a memory course. So I sought it out. I competed. I competed in 2008. I had just gotten back from Afghanistan like 6, 8, 10 weeks prior. And I came in 4th place. And that when I did that, I knew I could win. Because if I could just show up to this tournament after being in Afghanistan and get 4th place, I knew I could get 1st place with a year of training. So I went and trained and became the 9 and 10 champion.
Yeah, that's all. Congratulations, by the way. That's awesome. Did you go back in 2011, or were you done?
I trained. I won 9 and 10, and I lost. I came in 2nd place, 11 and 12.
Okay.
And that was, and then after that, I'm like, you know what? That is, I'm like, there is a risk reward, so you can train all year, or at least the 3 months prior to the tournament. You go compete and you don't win. Well, that's great, but you just spent 3 months training for a tournament and you didn't win. So I had to just make, is it worth the risk reward? And I decided it wasn't. But what I did decide was the reason I didn't win the tournament was not because I didn't hit my goals. I hit my goals. Somebody else just also hit their goals, right? They did better. So that's when actually I switched to the Afghanistan memory wall, because I realized there's nobody trying to stop me from doing this. As long as I hit my goals, I'm going to do the Afghanistan memory wall. So that's when I shifted to memory projects where either it's up to me. If I do it, I do it. And if I don't, I don't. But there's nobody else that's going to come and take it away from me or defeat me in it.
That's great. Do you have any memory projects on the horizon?
For me, I want to get back to I want to have the Afghanistan memory wall in my brain again and continue doing that. The Constitution is something else that I've memorized and I've written out. I want to get that back in my brain and do that. And then after that, I don't have any personal memory projects anymore. I think those two, I could just keep reviewing those, and those would be my signature projects for my life. I want to spend the rest of my time on Earth doing these projects or these demonstrations because I love those, but not doing any new ones. I may compete here and there in memory tournaments as a personal goal. I think I probably will continue to do that. But really, my time is devoted to teaching other people. To my, I'm 51, I'll be 52 soon. The rest of my time on earth is teaching this to others, passing the torch, showing others what they're capable of. And I say passing the torch, I'm teaching it to people my age too, because we're getting older. We're having trouble remembering names, remembering what we read, giving speeches, and we can't remember what we're supposed to say. So teaching is how I see my future.
Now, does that fulfill you?
Yeah, it does. I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing the light bulb go off in people's minds, and it does. I really enjoy sharing what I have spent my life learning. It makes me feel like my time learning it was worthwhile when others are willing to listen and benefit from it.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, Ron and I hosted an event in Baltimore, the Rolling Road Country Club, and Ron spent the whole day, talking about his memory course, or how to improve your memory, or how to remember names and objects and this and this, that, and the other thing. And you call it a mind palace. You call it a mind palace, right? Do you want to get, because I was fascinated, right, by it, and I signed up for the course, and my daughter's in on it, and my daughter I haven't started it yet, but my daughter just finished it, and she ripped off the president's names. I asked her one time out of the blue, and she just ripped them off, and wow. So do you want to go into a little bit of how to, I guess you can't go deep into in a short podcast like this, but if you can topically talk about how to start remembering things.
Yeah, so the memory palace and the mind palace was developed about 2,500 years ago by a man named Simonides. Simonides lived in Greece, and he realized, and I don't know if this story is true or not, but it's on the internet, so it's probably got to be true. I know they can't put fake stuff on the internet, but and I say it's on the internet, it's actually in a book. I don't know if I have the.
Watch out! That's a new mic you got there.
It is, yeah. Let's see. I don't know if I have the book here. I know I have the book here, but I don't know if I can find it. It's not important. Cicero, who was a Roman statesman about 2,000 years ago, there's some writings called ad horenum, and some people say these writings were not attributed to Cicero. Some say they were, but who cares? In these writings, called ad horenum, 2,000-year-old writings, it tells the story of a man who lived 500 years before these writings in 477 BC. And here's the story. There's a guy named Simonides. He's a poet. And he has this poem. He goes to this banquet. He recites this poem to this really rich guy. He leaves the banquet. The roof collapsed. Everybody in the banquet dies. They pull the rocks off the people. They can no longer identify the bodies. Simonides comes to the rescue. He's like, I was in there. I know where everybody was sitting. Brian was over there. Steve was over there. Lisa was they had different names. Karen was over there. Frank was over there. Doug was. He remembered them based upon where they were sitting. And then the light bulb went off in his head. Wait a minute. I just remembered an entire room full of people based on where they were sitting. In essence, my brain had tied them to that location. Then as the story goes, that's when the flip switched in his brain. And he's like, what if it wasn't a list of 20 people I wanted to memorize, but it was 20 facts? Could I visualize 20 facts around a room and store them there and remember it? So, everybody who's listening to this right now, wherever you're sitting, if you're running or you're jogging or whatever, maybe, I don't know. How do people listen to your podcast? Is it audio or video only?
It's both. It could be Spotify. It's both. Yeah.
Yeah. So they can be driving a bicycle, a car, whatever. But think if you're in a room, do this. And if you're not in a room, just think back to your house. So if you're in a room, I want you to look where the doorway is, and I want you to visualize yourself standing in the doorway of the room that you're in right now. Don't move over there. Just see the doorway and see yourself standing over there. If you're not in a room right now, this could be anything. You're sitting at a park. You could just visualize, look over to your left and anywhere. But imagine you're standing in this doorway. Look to your immediate left. What's the first big object that you see? And then I want you to go around the room and select 5 of them. That's all we're going to do. We're only going to do 5 because that's all we got time for. But I'm going to just kind of show you how this works. So I'm going to give you an example. My door is over there. If I'm standing in the doorway looking in the room and I go around the room clockwise, number one for me is a picture. Number two is a dresser. Number three is a chair. Number four is a cabinet. And five is a TV. You do the same thing. Go around the room in a circle. And I would suggest you start at one side of the door, go all the way around the room, and end on the other side of the door, with three being right in the middle. So 1, 2, 3 right in the middle, 4, 5 on the other side of the door. Now let's just imagine you've got 5 locations. This is what we call our mind palace. When we want to remember something, we visualize it and we will attach it to these locations. So let's look over there, back there at number 1. Rob, do you have a piece of furniture selected in your room?
I certainly do.
What is it?
I have a whiteboard I'm looking at.
A whiteboard. And on that whiteboard, I want you to imagine a washing machine. And the water's just, I want you to imagine that white is the white soap, the white foam, and water's just shooting out of there. So what's on the whiteboard?
A washing machine with white foam shooting out.
What's your number 2 location?
It's the chair. It's my prayer chair.
I want you to imagine that prayer chair as a dam. And I want you to imagine there's a bunch of water behind that dam, and the dam breaks and floods the room. So what's on the chair?
A dam.
Damn. Number 3. What is your number 3?
It's my printer.
Printer. On the printer, and don't write these down. You can write down the locations, but you're not writing down the words you were memorizing, right?
No.
Okay.
I was, but you told me to stop.
That's okay. That's why I told you to stop. It's no big deal. So let's just make sure you got the first 2 without reading them.
Whiteboard, washing machine, chair is the dam.
Perfect. See, you got them. You don't need to. Number 3, what's your number 3 location?
Printer.
On the printer, I want you to imagine a chef, and a chef is cooking your favorite food, and that food is shooting out of the printer. Keyword is chef. So what's on the printer?
The chef, and he's got food shooting out of the printer.
There you go. Number 4, what's your location?
A desk, my office desk.
Desk. I want you to imagine this desk is where you keep all your medicine. Here's my Tylenol. I had a cold or a flu or something. I want you to imagine you got your medicine and it's on your desk and you're pouring all the medicine out. So what's on your desk?
Medicine.
Last one. What's number 5?
It's my shelf with all my books on it.
I want you to imagine a man in a rowboat. I want you to see on one of those shelves, a man's just rowing a boat. And as he's rowing a boat, he's hitting the books off the shelf with his paddles. So what's on 5?
The man rowing a boat.
There you go. Now go around the room and tell us all 5.
So the whiteboard is the washing machine with the white soap the water coming out. It's the prayer chair is next with the dam it's in on it. And then the printer is the chef cooking and food shooting out of printer. The desk is the medicine, and the bookshelf is the guy rowing a boat, knocking all the books off the shelf.
Very good. Booyah. All right. So we just took the first, you mentioned your daughter did the president, so that gave me an idea. We just took the first 5 presidents. We took their last names: washing machine, Washington, a dam.
Okay.
Adam.
I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. So washing machine, Washington, a dam, Adams, old Jefferson, right? Thomas Jefferson, Jefferson.
Okay.
Medicine for Madison,
Okay.
and Monroe for Monroe. So those are the first 5 presidents, right? Now, this is the core of the mind palace. You take what you want to remember, you see it as a picture, and you visualize it around the room. Now, that could be anything. You could have a business speech you want to give. You got a speech you're giving tonight, I believe. If you wanted to, you could take the 5 key points that you wanted to talk about, and you could imagine them as pictures and see them around the room. And then when you give your speech tonight, talk without notes. And I'm just saying that as an example. I know you have your speech already memorized, but it's just an example. And then people say, well, Ron, what if there's more than 5 points in my speech? We'll just use the next room and pick 5 in there. Now there's 10 points in your speech. You know, no matter how, if I'm giving a speech at a best man's wedding, an insignificant speech, it's significant personally, but you know, it's significant. But even a best man's speech at a wedding, I have memorized it putting everything I want to. Oh, I want to talk about that time that he was on the soccer team. So I'll put a soccer ball over there on the thing, just a brain trigger to talk about that. Or if it's a business speech and I have bullet points I want to hit. So Even when I was in the Navy and giving briefings, I would use this. So this Mind Palace can be used to students can memorize their homework, or people can use it for business. So many applications, but that's all I'll say right now.
So, Ron, so speaking of which, let's do the speech thing. So, again, the whiteboard, you use the washing machine for Washington for the president. So, I'm not going to use a washing machine for my first point in the speech, right? I'm going to use something else. Is that correct?
Correct.
So, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, so if if you're doing a speech, is point number one your introduction, or you don't worry about that and you go to your main point, number one?
Yeah, so let's take a speech. So we just used these 5 locations to memorize the presidents, right?
Right.
But we can also use them for a speech. So here, let's take a speech. Introduction. So on your whiteboard, you might visualize a handshake, right? Shaking hands. Hey, give them your introduction. Tell them who you are, right? The next point is your chair, right? Number 2 is your chair.
Uh-huh.
So what do you think the second thing in your speech could be?
Well, so the second point is going to be about awareness, right? So I can see myself meditating in my chair, trying to become aware.
Perfect. And I'm not asking you to give all your speech here, but what's your third point?
Third point is the how the Chiseled podcast came about, right?
Perfect.
So would that be the printer? So what's coming out of the printer? A hammer and a chisel? Is that what I mean?
Yeah. You see yourself banging on the printer. You're chiseling it. You're sculpting the printer.
Yeah,
so
and then
the idea here.
Okay, and then the fourth point is about listening to the voice. So if I'm on my desk, would I have speakers on my desk and I'm listening to a voice, something like that?
Exactly.
And then the last point is about commitment. So I'm sitting here developing this with you. So I got my bookshelf, and I feel like, oh, you got to make but you said it's always got to be action words, and I'm like, you got to make a commitment to be able to read. Is that a good analogy or no?
You're right. You brought up a good point. So if you do something that doesn't have like a lot of you chisel, boom, you're in there with action on the printer. The speaker, maybe you can feel the sound and it's shaking the desk. You're right. Just seeing the books and say, I have a commitment to read. It might work. It might not, but it's risky because you're just, so, I mean, I might visualize, I got my super glue on my hand and I am putting my hand on that book. I'm making a commitment to that book, and that book is stuck in my hand. And as crazy as that is, that's a commitment. Or maybe I would have visualized myself in a straitjacket being committed, and I'm over there in the books, being committed.
Wow. Okay. So you got to be creative. You can see you're creative, and you've been doing it so long, you can see how fast it comes to you.
Well, that's, people say, I'm not that creative. I can't think of it that quickly. Here's the thing. 20 years ago, I had to think of a picture for the word committed, and I thought of a straitjacket, right? Well, that stays in my database, my memory, right, of my images for words. So you're just building up an encyclopedia in your brain, images for words. And so it's not necessarily that I'm creating it that quickly. It's that, hey, I've done that before. I've done that word before, or I've done something similar to that word before. And it is quicker, but it's just repetition and practice.
So you're like kind of pulling it out of a file. Like each piece of furniture is like a file, and I guess you have that action piece with it, depending on whatever you're trying to remember.
Yeah. You know what? I hate to say this. I don't hate to say it. It's just it's not. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's probably good. And today's day and age, 2025, you don't have to worry about being creative anymore. Just go to Chat GPT and say, give me a memory picture for the word committed. And it'll give you 10 ideas.
Wow. I need to think of that. That's great. That's great.
I do stuff. It all the time. I cannot tell you how much I rely on AI now for my Bible memory course. Every week I create a Bible memory lesson. And I have a method for turning numbers into pictures. It's called the major system, and we don't have time to get into it. And I haven't had time to get into it with my Bible Memory Club, and I meet with them every week. That's how much it takes, about a 15-minute explanation. So sometimes I have to create images for numbers without them knowing the major system, which is a pretty big system. I just need to teach it to them. Flat out, I need to teach it to them.
Yeah.
But I go to Chat GPT all the time, and I'm like, give me a picture for the number 20 or whatever, and it'll list 10 different ideas, things. Or I'll say, hey, for my Bible memory today, I'm trying to think of a picture for the word anyone. Give me 10 pictures for it. So it's a great tool.
So, and that brings up a point for me. Like when AI first came, well, not when it first came out, when it started to gain momentum and traction over here the last few years, I was not a fan. I was like, oh, you're taking away people's ability to think, right? And then as I started to use it a little bit, and you use the key word tool, don't use it to do your work, use it as a tool to help you do your work. Because what it's helped me do is learn to, like, because you got to prompt the AI, and it's helped me learn to ask better questions. If I want the answer I'm looking for, I got to ask the right question. And that's how AI's helped me using it as a tool.
Yeah, that's a great point. You do have to do the right points and ask the right questions.
Yeah, yeah. So it has nothing to do with this podcast, but I just thought I brought it up since you
No,
since
it's
you
a
said that.
valid point.
Yes, so we were in our event, right? And what's really cool, this is for the audience, and they're like, it was I don't know, 50 of us or whatever. It was 50 or 50, yeah, I think it's 50 people, whatever, it doesn't matter. So at the end of the day, Ron got everybody to stand up, and we had to say hi to two people, shake their hand, say their name, and blah blah blah. And then within 10 minutes, Ron had just about everybody in that room remembering everybody's name. Like, that was fascinating. So you created pictures for names, is that correct?
Yeah, and that happens with time too. But Rob, I see somebody with a mask on. Rob in the store. Ron, I see a man running.
Or
Steve,
Connie the convict.
Connie the convict, Lisa the Mona Lisa, Karen the carrot, Brian the brain, Matt the doormat. So your brain will remember something if you can see it as a picture.
Uh-huh.
The reason we say we remember a face and not a name is we saw the face, we never saw the name. If you want to start remembering more names, you need to be able to visualize the name. And that was what we did there, in that we went around the room, created images for everybody's first name, and then told ourselves a story, seeing that image interacting with their face.
Yeah, that was wild. It was really fun. So, Ron, if you want to get into this for a few minutes, because I think this is benefits you, Ron talks about remember decks of cards and people's names and speeches and verses in the Bible. And you said you're not the smartest guy. You just know how to use your brain. And how can you teach people? Well, you have a course. You've done speeches and seminars and presentations. Do you want to talk a little bit about your course, and maybe maybe it's something somebody might be interested in connecting with you about?
Yeah, sure. I would love to them to do that. If they're on Instagram, they can follow me at Brain Athlete. Brain like brain in your head, and athlete like an Olympic athlete. So at Brain Athlete. But if they are interested in my course, I have a course called Black Belt Memory. When you're a black belt in karate, you're the best. Well, that's this when you complete my course, you get a black belt in memory.
Is that a first degree?
Yeah, I guess so. You never stop. You never stop training this. So, but I'm not there to give you any more belts, I guess. But the course is divided up into modules. You'll earn your yellow belt in memory, and your blue and your orange and your purple, brown and black. But it's kind of made a game that way, but it is a neat thing because you're going to learn to remember names and faces to build relationships. You're going to learn a system to learn to read anything faster, to whatever's important to you. Maybe you want to memorize poetry or business information or Bible verses or names and faces, or your kids want to get better grades in school. They just want to learn how to study and remember more. So it's really a comprehensive course, and it's at blackbeltmemory.com.
And so if they're interested, they can see that. And are there different types of courses within the course? Like, is it just one course and that's it, or are there other things added to it, like more in depth stuff?
Yeah, I mean, as you go through the course, it's not different courses inside the course, but it is divided into sections. One section's devoted to names, one section's devoted to the major system, the number thing that I talked about, a whole thing on how to turn numbers into pictures. There's another section on how to do foreign languages. There's another section on fun things like how to memorize a deck of cards, how to remember what you read, how to memorize lines or quotes or poems. So it's divided into sections, themes, I guess you would say.
Okay. Yeah, I browsed it real quick, and like I said, my daughter went through. So, Ron, as we wrap this up here, I always ask this question. You've done a lot. You're 51 years old, and you've remembered all kinds of things. You talked about some projects and which your legacy would be. What your big favorite things were as far as the project you've done. How much more chiseling do you think you got going on in your life? How much more chiseling's God gonna knock out on you or help you remember more, impact other people?
Oh, Well, I don't know. You know, one of the in my Bible memory club today, we took Ecclesiastes chapter 9, and the theme of that is the fish has no idea that the net is getting ready to go into the water and scoop him out, and that's going to be it. The fish is completely unaware of that. So, the answer is, how much more chiseling is there left from me? I have no idea. I don't know when that net is going to swoop me down, but I will say this. I hope the answer to that is a lot. I hope there's a lot more chiseling left in me, because I am so far in life from where I want to be. And that's not because I am disappointed with my life. It's just because I have goals and I'm driven and I'm always want to get better. So I hope there's a lot more chiseling left, and I hope there's a lot more learning and improving left. And, you know, my neighbor is 85 years old. We both, you know, he's got some acreage, I got some acreage. And I said, man, I said, Mr. Hoke, I said, every day there's something different to do out here. The tree's falling down, or the fence is broken, or I got to plow this field, or whatever. And he said, there's always something to do. And if you're lucky, you'll never finish. And when he said that, it was one of the most profound things for me. He's 84 years old. He gets up every day. He works. And if he's lucky, the work will never be finished. There will always be something to work on. I think work is happiness.
Oh, wow. I like that. That's profound. Always something to work on, because we're always a work in progress. And that's part of the theme of this podcast here. So I thank you for that. And I didn't say thanks earlier because I met you through Kyle, you know, and hopefully, you know, this is going to be a lifelong relationship, friendship, so on and so forth. And every time we go to one of Kyle's events, you're there, and Kyle has you up there talking to people. One of the funnest things was you had 25 people give 2 digits, and you memorized all 50 numbers going forward and all 50 numbers going backward. And that was pretty impressive. So that's something else people can learn. So Ron, you mentioned it briefly. How can people get a hold of you? You talked about Instagram, and I think you mentioned something else, but if you can again reiterate, how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in connecting with you or the memory course?
Well, if somebody, you know, wants to follow me on Instagram at brainathlete.com, you know, that's a good way just to, you know, that's following somebody on social media is a good way to just always be in touch with them, because every time you log in, you see what they're up to in their life, and vice versa. Blackbeltmemory.com is my course. If you contacted me by sending me an email at ron at brainathlete.com, then I'd love to talk with you. Kyle and I are getting ready to do another 2-day marketing class at his house. If anybody wants to attend that live and you're hearing this podcast pretty soon, email me and I'll tell you about it.
That's awesome. Ron, man, I appreciate your time. I forgot to mention he's also a comedian, because he's a pretty funny guy. But I appreciate your time here today. It's been awesome. And I highly recommend people to engage in this, to take a look at least send Ron an email and see how this can help you. And the main reason my daughter's doing it, because she's in school and she wants to better memorize some of the things and facts and figures she needs to for her classes. And she's in graduate school for that. And so I already see it working on her, and it's great. And I just appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time as well.
Got it. Well, Ron, until next time, and the audience as well, let's go get chiseled.